When was the last time you really paused, looked yourself in the mirror, and asked, "Am I living the life I truly desire?" Not the version shaped by others' expectations, not the one that checks all the boxes society hands you, but the one that actually speaks to your soul. Carl Jung, a brilliant and deeply insightful figure in modern psychology, offered a powerful message that many shy away from embracing: the courage it takes to choose yourself, especially when everything around you is trying to steer you in the opposite direction. We're surrounded by a world carefully built to keep our attention scattered, locked into routines, weighed down by expectations, and constantly juggling obligations that feel inescapable. From the second your eyes open in the morning, the outside world starts placing demands on you. Your job, your family, your responsibilities, even the unspoken rules of society, all begin whispering or shouting how you're supposed to act, what goals you should chase, and what success should mean to you. But there's a hard truth most people prefer to overlook. Each time you put someone else's needs ahead of your own, you're quietly telling your inner self that it doesn't really count, that its wants, its dreams, its truth are somehow less important. You end up silencing that gentle inner voice, the one buried deep in your subconscious, that's always trying to nudge you toward a life that feels more real, more meaningful. Carl Jung believed that our relationship with the unconscious isn't something we can just ignore or treat as optional. It's not just a part of us, it's a vital part of who we are. Yet, so many people push it down, ignore its whispers, or pretend it isn't there, mostly because truly listening to it can stir discomfort. That unease you sometimes feel, that sense that something in your life just isn't lining up? That's not random. That's your soul trying to get your attention. It's nudging you, urging you to make a shift, even if the idea of changing anything feels overwhelming or even terrifying. So take a breath and really think for a moment. How many of your recent choices came from a place of genuine truth, your truth? And how many were fueled by fear? Fear of letting someone down? Fear of stepping outside what's considered normal? Fear of the unknown, the uncomfortable, or simply fear of leaving behind what's familiar? Jung asked us to seriously reflect on these questions, because he grasped a profound and universal reality. When your choices aren't aligned with your inner truth, they only lead to confusion and a growing sense of disconnection. The more distance you create between who you are and how you live, the more adrift you begin to feel. But let's set the record straight about something important. Choosing yourself doesn't mean turning your back on others. This isn't about becoming selfish or ignoring the people who matter to you. It's about understanding that the only way to offer the world the best, most grounded version of yourself is by first being in harmony with who you are inside. That's the heart of self-love, a core idea Carl Jung explored deeply. And here's the truth: self-love isn't some luxury for the lucky few. It's not an excuse to run from your responsibilities or obligations. Self-love is the solid ground on which every deep, meaningful, and genuine relationship is built. When you finally start placing yourself as a priority, something subtle but powerful begins to shift within you. Your energy changes. And with that shift, you start drawing in people and experiences that truly resonate with who you are at your core. It's almost like the universe picks up on your choice to live in alignment with your truth. It starts clearing away what no longer serves your growth, and begins delivering what your soul has been quietly yearning for. But here's the thing: to arrive at that place, you have to be willing to face your shadows, the parts of you buried, denied, or been too afraid to confront. Jung referred to the shadow as the hidden side of our psyche, the collection of traits and emotions we'd often prefer to pretend don't exist within us. Yes, confronting your shadow can be deeply uncomfortable, but it's right there, in that discomfort, where real transformation begins. Because once you stop resisting those hidden parts of yourself and instead start to understand and embrace them, you unlock a kind of inner strength you never knew was there. This process, This integration of shadow and self doesn't happen in a day. It asks for bravery, for patience, and for a steady commitment to truly knowing who you are beneath the surface. But what it gives you in return, that's priceless. You gain clarity, the kind that cuts through the illusions you used to accept as truth. You discover purpose, a fresh, focused sense of meaning and direction in your life. And most importantly, you find peace, a deep, unwavering calm that no storm outside of you can shake. You also begin to say no with confidence to people, situations, or paths that don't align with your truth. And you do it without guilt, without fear, and without letting the opinions of others control your course. But above all else, you reclaim the freedom to be unapologetically yourself. Now you might be asking, where do I even begin this kind of journey? The truth is, it starts in a much simpler place than most people expect, by listening. Start paying attention to yourself. Whenever you feel discomfort, confusion, or an emotional wave rising inside, take a moment. Pause and ask, what is my unconscious trying to tell me right now? Because, as Jung wisely reminded us, the answers we chase out in the world are often already waiting within us. We just need the courage to truly hear them, and the determination to follow through. Listening to your intuition might be one of the hardest things you'll ever do, especially when it's pointing you toward a path that disrupts everything you built. Maybe it's a relationship that no longer nurtures your growth. Maybe it's a job that drains your energy but feels like a cage you can't escape. Or maybe it's a dream you've been pursuing not because it lights you up, but because it once seemed like the right thing to do. Jung teaches us that ignoring the signals from within isn't strength, it's self-abandonment. It's a quiet refusal to honor who you really are. To choose yourself means finding the courage to walk away from what no longer aligns with your soul. And let's be honest, that's not easy. We cling to what's familiar, even when it hurts, because the unknown feels scarier than the pain we've grown used to. We tell ourselves, better the devil you know, and stay stuck in what's comfortable, even if it's costing us our peace. But Jung invites us to look at change differently, not as a loss or a failure, but as a doorway. A passage toward a life that reflects your truest self. So pause and ask yourself, what are you still holding on to that's quietly weighing you down? What relationships, beliefs, or habits are you maintaining, not out of love, but out of fear? Yes, letting go might feel like a loss at first. But the real loss? That happens when you trade your inner calm for something that no longer brings meaning or joy. In the end, the choice is yours. And maybe the most life-changing question you can ask yourself right now is, am I finally ready to choose me? Because choosing yourself, it's not selfish. Not even close. Choosing yourself is one of the deepest acts of love and self-respect you can ever offer. For far too long, we've been taught that putting ourselves first is wrong, that honoring our own needs somehow means we're letting others down. But the truth is just the opposite. When you finally, consciously choose yourself, something incredible begins to happen. It's like the fog that's been clouding your vision for years begins to lift. And suddenly, you start to see your life, and the people in it, with sharp, undeniable clarity. Those who truly care for you, who want to see you thrive, they stay. And those who only took from you, who never really saw your worth, they begin to fade from your orbit. And that shift? That's not by chance. It's a reflection, a mirror of the deep transformation taking place within you. As your inner world begins to align, your outer world naturally follows. Because when you live in truth, everything that doesn't match that vibration starts to fall away, making space for what does. Carl Jung referred to this as synchronicity, that strange but undeniable link between your inner world and the events that unfold around you. When you begin to live in alignment with your truth, something extraordinary happens. Your external reality begins to shift, as if the universe is responding directly to your authenticity. It rearranges your surroundings to reflect the person you're becoming. But here's the catch. This kind of transformation demands something most people find incredibly hard. Radical honesty with yourself. Choosing yourself isn't just about drawing lines in the sand or making bold, life-altering moves. Sometimes, it means sitting face to face with uncomfortable truths from your past. Maybe there were moments when your choices didn't reflect your real values. Maybe you let others cross boundaries you should have protected, sacrificing your peace just to keep the peace. Maybe you kept saying, yes, when every part of you was screaming, no, all because you didn't want to let someone down. But here's what truly matters. This isn't about blaming or judging yourself. It's not about carrying guilt for the choices you've made. It's about recognizing the opportunity in front of you, a chance to pause, reflect, and shift. A moment to say, I can choose differently moving forward. Jung reminded us that authenticity isn't some final destination you arrive at one day. It's a lifelong journey. A process of uncovering, learning, evolving, slowly becoming the most honest version of who you are. And along that path, you will face resistance. There will be times when doubt creeps in. Old habits will whisper to you, calling you back into familiar rhythms, not because they're right, but because they feel safe. But don't forget this simple truth. Real growth never happens inside your comfort zone. The most powerful transformations happen when you find the courage to leave the familiar behind and step into the unknown. Not everyone will understand your decision to finally choose yourself. Some will question it. Some might criticize you. And yes, some may even pull away, simply because you no longer fit the version of you they were comfortable with. And that can hurt. Because choosing yourself often means letting go of the need for external validation. You begin to understand something life-changing. Your worth doesn't come from other people's approval. It comes from your own belief in who you are and what you stand for. That doesn't mean cutting yourself off from others or walking through life alone. Quite the opposite. When you choose yourself, your relationships begin to evolve, often in ways you never expected. You stop chasing validation. Instead, you start seeking real, meaningful connection. You let go of surface-level interactions and start craving relationships that feed your soul, the kind built on truth, not performance. And through this journey, you'll uncover something truly beautiful. The right people, the ones who genuinely see and appreciate you, will stay. Not because they need something from you, but because they honor you for exactly who you are. As you begin living from a place of truth and authenticity, the world around you starts to reflect that shift. This isn't magic. It's not some illusion. It's the natural and powerful interaction between your inner reality and the outer world. Jung often spoke about this, how the psyche projects what we carry within ourselves onto the world outside us. When your inner world is filled with conflict, you'll see it mirrored in your surroundings. When you reject yourself, you'll find rejection showing up in different ways. But when you choose yourself, when you embrace every part of who you are, something begins to change. You start to notice how the people, opportunities, and energy around you begin to shift too, aligning more closely with the truth you're finally living. Real transformation doesn't happen in a flash. It's a journey, a gradual unfolding. And like any meaningful process, it takes patience, persistence, and the willingness to keep going even when progress feels slow. There will be days when you feel like you're slipping backward. Moments when old habits try to claw their way back in. And this is where the true test begins. Can you stay grounded in your decision to choose yourself, even when it feels uncomfortable? Even when it feels isolating? We live in a world that glorifies sacrifice. A culture that praises the act of giving everything to others, even when it comes at the cost of your own well-being. But the question is, at what cost? What happens when you keep giving without pause? When you keep pouring from an empty cup, thinking that's what makes you worthy? Eventually, you lose yourself in the process. And that's why choosing yourself is not selfish. It's essential. It's how you begin to show up for the world in a way that's real, whole, and sustainable. It's not just important, it's necessary. Because only when you are whole, fully connected to your truth, can you give to others from a place of abundance, not depletion. So choose yourself. Not just once, not only when it's convenient, but every single day. Choose yourself in the quiet moments, in the small, often unnoticed decisions. And watch as your life begins to shift in extraordinary ways you never thought possible. Carl Jung shared a truth that cuts deep. We cannot give what we do not possess. If you constantly sacrifice your joy, your energy, or your inner calm to meet the needs of others, then what you're offering isn't real. It's not grounded in truth. And over time, that imbalance, that disconnect, will begin to show up in your life. Sometimes as burnout. Sometimes as a quiet dissatisfaction. And sometimes as a deep, lingering emptiness you can't quite explain. Take a quiet moment and really think about the relationships in your life right now. How many of them lift you up, inspire you, and bring you a sense of peace? And how many leave you feeling drained, unsettled, or emotionally worn out? Carl Jung encouraged us to ask these kinds of questions, because relationships aren't just social interactions. They're mirrors. They reflect our inner landscape, our beliefs, our wounds, our emotional patterns. The people we keep close often say more about our internal world than we realize. If someone keeps crossing your boundaries, it doesn't automatically mean they're a bad person. It might mean that a part of you still hasn't learned how to stand guard, how to fully protect your peace. And that's where boundaries come in. Setting them isn't selfish, it's sacred. It's how we teach others, and more importantly ourselves, what we will and will not allow. Setting boundaries is, at its core, an act of self-love. Carl Jung believed that our unconscious mind is always trying to guide us toward what's best for us. But more often than not, we dismiss or overlook its signals. That heaviness you feel after spending time with certain people? That emotional fatigue that creeps in? It's not just in your head. It's your unconscious waving a red flag, trying to tell you, this connection isn't aligned with who you truly are. And if you keep ignoring that message, the cost is always the same. Your inner peace. Choosing yourself means learning how to set boundaries, not as rigid walls to shut others out, but as bridges that invite healthier, more honest relationships to form. Boundaries aren't about disconnection, they're about clarity. They show others how to meet you in truth, not expectation. Every time you say no to what doesn't serve you, you're actually saying yes to something far more important, to your truth, to your dreams, to your well-being. That doesn't mean you need to cut ties with everyone who challenges you. But it does mean being radically honest with yourself. Which relationships uplift you, and which ones slowly drain your energy. As you start living from a place of honesty and alignment, something amazing begins to shift. Your intuition grows stronger. That quiet inner voice, the one that used to feel distant or unsure, starts speaking with clarity and confidence. And you begin to make choices that don't just make sense. They feel right, deep down in your soul. This is the real power of choosing yourself. It reconnects you with your intuition, with that built-in inner compass that's always been there, quietly waiting for your trust. Jung saw intuition as one of the most direct and pure ways we connect with the unconscious. And when you choose yourself, you begin to hear it more clearly than ever before. It's that deep, indescribable knowing, the feeling in your gut when something just clicks, or when it clearly doesn't. That's your intuition speaking. But to truly hear it, you have to quiet the noise of the outside world. That means releasing the need for approval, letting go of societal pressures and expectations, and most importantly, learning to trust yourself. Because at the end of the day, no one else can know what's right for you the way you can. Only you can feel what resonates with your soul. When you choose yourself, you send out a clear, powerful message to the universe. I'm ready to live in alignment with who I really am. And the universe listens. Almost effortlessly, you begin to attract people, opportunities, and experiences that reflect your true energy. That doesn't mean life will suddenly become perfect or free of challenges. But those challenges? They stop feeling like a constant uphill battle. Instead, they become part of a path that feels purposeful and aligned. Instead of endless struggle, those challenges become stepping stones, opportunities for growth, healing, and self-discovery. And as you choose to live with authenticity, you begin to notice something else, something Jung spoke about often: synchronicity. Those perfectly timed events, the chance meetings, the meaningful coincidences, they're not random. They're reflections of your inner alignment. When you are in harmony with yourself, the outside world begins to shift with you. Doors open without force. The right people appear, seemingly out of nowhere, just when you need them. And suddenly, life begins to flow, not perfectly, but effortlessly, in ways you never thought possible. This is the beauty of living as your true self. When you start honoring your inner world, your outer world rises to meet it. And in that sacred space, where your thoughts, emotions, and actions are finally in sync, you'll find something deeper than happiness. You'll find fulfillment. You'll discover a kind of peace that doesn't come from achievement or approval, but from something far more profound. The quiet, unwavering knowing that you are exactly where you're meant to be. When you choose yourself and begin to honor your truth, it often feels as though the universe leans in to support you. Opportunities that once seemed out of reach begin to appear with ease. The right people show up at exactly the right moment. And life, somehow, begins to flow in a way that used to feel impossible. It's as if the entire fabric of your reality starts to shift, aligning with this new version of you, grounded in purpose and authenticity. Suddenly, what once felt distant is now within arm's reach. But let's be clear, that doesn't mean the journey will be smooth or without obstacles. In fact, some of the greatest challenges will appear the moment you finally choose yourself. Because the world, the one that grew used to the version of you who constantly aimed to please, to shrink, to conform, may push back. It may resist your growth. And it will test your resolve. You'll feel the pressure of old expectations pulling at you. You'll hear the doubts. You'll face the fears. And yes, the urge to return to the familiar, to the version of you that once felt safe, will be strong. This is the moment where your true power reveals itself. Every time you stand by your decision to choose yourself, every time you place your inner peace above outside pressure, you deepen your connection with your most authentic self. The secret is to stay grounded, especially when doubt or uncertainty tries to creep in. It's perfectly human to feel fear when stepping away from the familiar, even when you know it no longer serves you. But don't forget this simple truth. Every time you remain in a space that no longer brings you joy, you close the door on something that could completely transform your life. Carl Jung reminded us that all meaningful change comes with resistance. But that resistance? It's not a sign that you're doing something wrong. In fact, it's often proof that you're finally stepping into what's right. That resistance you feel? It's not a sign to stop. It's proof that you're moving forward. It's the natural friction that arises between the life you've outgrown and the one you're stepping into. It's the tension between who you were and who you're becoming. One of the most powerful ways to move through that resistance is by turning inward, through honest, intentional self-reflection. Ask yourself, what do I truly value? What actually matters to me? What kind of life do I want to create, not for others, but for myself? Because once you become clear on your values and your vision, your decisions begin to flow with greater ease. You stop second-guessing. You start aligning. And as you align, something incredible happens. You begin to draw in people, experiences, and opportunities that match your energy. The world around you shifts to reflect the clarity within you. And above all else, remember this: you are not alone on this path. Choosing yourself might feel like a solitary act in the beginning, but in truth, it opens the way for the right people to find you. People who will walk beside you. People who will support and celebrate your growth, not resist it. These aren't the ones who ask you to shrink or change to fit into their lives. They accept you fully as you are, because they too have made the decision to live in alignment with their truth. When you reach this point, something inside you shifts for good. Life no longer feels like a constant uphill battle. Decisions that once left you paralyzed with doubt now come with clarity and calm. You trust yourself. You lead with confidence. And most importantly, you begin to experience a kind of peace that isn't tied to anyone else, not to outcomes, not to approval, not to control. Because as Jung reminded us, real peace only comes from within. And that inner peace? It's the natural result of finally honoring your needs, respecting your boundaries, and living in full alignment with your deepest values. But here's the beautiful truth: this journey isn't just for you. It's not only a personal gift. It's something you're meant to share with the world. When you choose to live authentically, you become a quiet source of inspiration. Your courage becomes a light, a steady beacon for those who are still trying to find their way. And in choosing yourself, you don't just change your own life. You spark a ripple effect. You give others silent permission to do the same. So pause for a moment and really imagine. What would your life feel like if you let go of everything that no longer serves you? What kind of freedom could you experience if you release the relationships that leave you depleted? The commitments that don't reflect your truth? The expectations you've been carrying that were never truly yours? Picture the space that would open up inside you. The lightness. The clarity. The freedom to finally breathe. This isn't a fantasy. It's not some unreachable dream. This is not a far-off dream. It's a real possibility, completely within your reach. All it takes is the willingness to do one brave thing: choose yourself. And when you make that choice, you begin to realize something life-changing. You're not actually losing anything by letting go of what no longer aligns with you. You're gaining space. Space for what truly matters. Space to build a life that doesn't just make sense on paper, but one that fills you with joy, meaning, and a deep sense of purpose. And that is the kind of transformation worth welcoming with open arms. This is the gift Carl Jung hoped we would all discover. That moment of profound clarity, when you stop searching for your worth in the outside world, and realize that everything you've been seeking has always lived within you. Transformation begins the moment you stop performing and start being. The moment you stop trying to become who the world told you to be, and choose instead to become who you truly are. And when this shift finally happens, something extraordinary begins to unfold. You start to feel truly alive. No longer trapped by the expectations of others. No longer shackled by a society that insists on defining who you should be, how you should act, and what success is supposed to look like. Instead, you begin to tune in to that quiet, steady voice within, the one that's always been there, whispering, urging you to go deeper. To remember that something greater is waiting, if only you have the courage to reach for it. This is liberation. And the feeling is priceless. It's like a weight you didn't even realize you were carrying has finally been lifted. You breathe more fully, more deeply, maybe for the first time in years. Maybe for the first time ever. But let's be honest, this kind of freedom takes immense courage. Because it doesn't just require you to push back against the pressures of the outside world. It asks you to face the internal forces that have shaped your life until now.